Hello and welcome to the Health and Happiness Interview Series. This is Dvorah Lansky from ShareYourBrilliance.com, where we focus on helping authors and entrepreneurs to share their brilliance with the world. Our guest today is Gin Stephens, author of several books, including her flagship book, Delay, Don't Deny, Living an Intermittent Fasting Lifestyle. Gin lives in Augusta, Georgia, where she has been following an intermittent fasting lifestyle since 2014. And thanks to intermittent fasting, she lost over 80 pounds and has been effortlessly maintaining the weight since March of 2015. Gin is the co-host of the Intermittent Fasting podcast and the host of Intermittent Fasting Stories, where you'll hear inspiring stories from intermittent fasters from all walks of life. Gin manages 3 intermittent fasting Facebook groups of over 140,000 combined members, and these groups represent a growing intermittent fasting community from around the globe. Visit ginstephens.com to read her blog post and see some inspiring intermittent fasting success stories. Hello, Gin, and welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to talk to you today and interested in reaching your audience and letting them know about the magic of intermittent fasting.
Well, I know that they will love it. I've been talking to people a little bit about it, and I just know that hearing from you is going to change lives and open up eyes. So why don't we just dive in and we can tell people all about intermittent fasting.
All right, I'm ready.
Awesome. So we're going to be talking today about intermittent fasting and your best-selling book, Delay, Don't Deny, Living an Intermittent Fasting Lifestyle. So to start off with, could you let our listeners know what intermittent fasting is?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. We've all heard of fasting. A lot of people have heard about it through the lens of like a religious practice. You know, a lot of religions have fasting days built in to what they do. And then, of course, we know it means you're not eating. And then the intermittent part is the clue about the fact that you're not doing it, continuously for 40 days and 40 nights. You're not just, denying yourself of food and fasting on, but you follow some sort of intermittent approach where you're fasting and then you're eating and then you're fasting and then you're eating. And so there are many ways you can structure it, but most of us find we gravitate towards what we call a daily eating window. And that just means that all of your eating for the day takes place within a smaller window of time. If we think about the way most people eat in today's society, we've been told you got to eat breakfast, as soon as you get up. I even read a book one time that said you should eat, within 30 minutes of your feet hitting the floor in the morning. And so we eat breakfast, then we have snacks, then we have lunch, then we have snacks, then we have dinner, maybe more snacks. So, people believe that we need to eat, like 6 times a day because that's what conventional wisdom has been recently over the past, decade or so. But with intermittent fasting, we actually realize, hey, wait a minute. It's not good for our body to be in the fed state from the moment we wake up till the time we go to bed at night. For some people, really the only break that their bodies get is while they're sleeping. So with intermittent fasting, you just extend that, you wake up in the morning, you're in the fasted state from sleeping, you just extend it to a certain part of the day. And then at that time, you quote, break fast, because that's what breakfast means after all. We do break fast just at a different time of the day. And then we have all of our food within that eating window. And, there's so many benefits that our bodies get when we give them that break, that fasting break every single day.
Well, it's so amazing because I am a follower of your work and your book changed my life. We'll talk about your book in a little bit. But what I noticed is I used to get really tired after I ate. And I was I read that, eat before 30 minutes passes when you wake up in the morning and eat 6 times a day and all of these different things. And I could never lose weight. And
right.
At the time of this recording, we're 4 months in, I've lost 20 pounds. I have more energy. I sleep better. And I feel so excited and sense of well-being. And so
well, congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I feel like I'm just getting started. However, I I feel so hopeful, and I feel that it's so much more than just about eating and health, because my sense of well-being, and I know that you talk about just your purpose in life and the things that you're able to do, and how much, I'm in your Facebook group, and I recommend our listeners get your book and join your group, and where you share with us the different exercises that you're doing because you have so much energy. So it's
Right.
not just about eating, it's about energy and lifestyle, right?
It's true. And so many of us, we're afraid, we hear about intermittent fasting and we think, we're going to be hangry and we're going to drag and we're not going to have energy. And you may feel like that the first couple of weeks until your body adjusts. But the secret is you actually start to feel better and better. I no longer have, the mid-morning slump, the afternoon slump, all those different slumps during the day are gone. I have steady energy during the day. I may still have a stomach rumble here and there, but it's easy to ignore. It's not an emergency signal of, oh my gosh, I have to eat right now. And so what people find, like you're finding, we free up our mind from constant thoughts of what do I need to eat next or should I eat? And now we're just having this steady energy and we feel wonderful. The mental clarity is my favorite part.
Well, that's such a gift. That is such a gift. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey. I think people would like to know, like, how did you get started? How did you find this? What was a bit about your journey that you'd like to share?
Well, I have a journey that sounds familiar to a lot of people. And, in one of my Facebook groups, it's the advanced group, which is only for people who have read my book. People have to answer the question, something about the book that, so I'll know that you've read it. And a lot of people reference my weight loss journey because I have that in the back of the book in the appendix. And so a lot of people tell me that my story reminds them of their own story, trying one thing after another, crazy fad diets. And for me, it was always like I thought there was going to be some magical way to eat, some magical foods, like foods almost take on the property of if you just find the magical right foods, you'll be slim, like the people in the magazines that are promoting their different diets. It became so much about the food. And really, once I started intermittent fasting and I understood that it wasn't about the food, it was about the periods of eating and periods of not eating. And so I was finally able to get through all that craziness that I went through for so many, really decades. I can remember my earliest diets. It started with the calorie counting. That was what my mother did. And then it moved on to the low fat era of the 90s. And then, I would have periods where something would work. Like the low fat diet did work for me. In the 90s, I got down really slim. I didn't look good though. I go back and look at photos of myself. I didn't look healthy. And then, of course, that cycled through all the different diets that came along. I had a period of time where I took diet pills from the doctor. They were prescription, right? So it has to be healthy. The doctor gave them to me. And as I got older, it just got even harder and harder. So the cycling got worse and worse, and the attempts got crazier and crazier. Where eventually I just, you see if you can see the pictures, those people who are looking at the slides, I got up to 210 pounds and I'm 5'5", so I was obese. And thankfully, I finally found my way to intermittent fasting. And the key shift for me was in 2014 when I got to that 210 pounds, I realized, I really do need a lifestyle and not a diet. So it was kind of like a switch in my head just kind of flipped at some point along the way. And I realized, this is going to be a lifestyle instead of just something I'm trying. Then I'll get down to my goal weight and then I'm done. And then I can go back to, how I was before. There is no end point. You do intermittent fasting as a lifestyle and you really don't want to go back to how you were. That's the beauty of it. If someone said to me, you know what, you can maintain your weight where you are right now and go back to eating all day long like you used to, I would not even have to think about that because I didn't feel good. The days that I take off or set fasting aside for the day, like, for example, a holiday or Thanksgiving or Christmas, I'm ready to get back to my intermittent fasting lifestyle the next day. And that's how it truly has become a lifestyle.
Well, what's so interesting about intermittent fasting, what I find is I've usually once a year, and it's a huge deal, and I have to work myself up to it, and it just seems overwhelming, and I'm obsessed, and it's just not comfortable. But what I notice about intermittent fasting is it's something I look forward to. I actually feel better when I'm not eating and I'm not
Right.
starving and I'm not doing anything unhealthy. The doctor's actually amazed with, how I've lowered my cholesterol and, that I'm losing weight. She said I would lose 25 pounds in an entire year, and I'm only in 4 months and I'm almost there. But the point being that it's not this big, scary, mysterious thing that's hard to do. It's just
Right. It's one of those things that seems like it's going to be harder. And then when you do it, it becomes easy versus every other diet, I think, that we've ever tried seems like it's going to be easy, but then it actually becomes harder the longer you do it. So it's like really, the exact opposite of everything we've done before.
I think part of it might be that it's a lifestyle versus a diet.
Right. Yeah, that's important.
All right, so let's dig a little deeper. So
Okay.
we know that intermittent fasting is not a diet program, but rather a way of life. It does, however, require discipline and determination. So here's a two-part question. Part one is, what are the biggest mistakes that you see people making when getting started with intermittent fasting?
All right. That's a great question. And, a lot of people say, well, I already kind of do this. I only eat, whatever and during the day, and I think I'm already doing it. Then we realize when we dig a little deeper that they're not really fasting. Okay. So people think that if they're just drinking beverages, they must be fasting. And then we find out that they're having, a latte in the morning full of, creamer, and they're putting artificial sweeteners in it. And then they're living on their diet sodas. And so, yes, that's not technically a meal, but it causes reactions in your body that make your body think you're having food, or if, in the case of cream and creamer, you really are having food. So one of the problems people make is not really understanding what fasting means. We call that in our Facebook groups the clean fast. And so there's certain things you can have, and that's really all you should have. You can have, of course, water, plain water, sparkling unflavored water. That's fine. You can also have black coffee, no added sweeteners, no added flavors. If you're drinking a coffee that is called cinnamon roll flavor coffee, it might have 0 calories, but your body tastes that flavor and thinks, hey, I'm having something sweet. And then it causes something called an insulin release. And the key to that is we want to keep our insulin low during the fasted state so that we can access our stored fat. So if you're spending the whole day with artificially sweetened beverages or coffee with creamer or fruit flavored sparkling waters, your body really isn't getting into that fasted state because it thinks you're having, that fruit or that sweet, sugary thing. Even though it's 0 calories, your body doesn't understand that because in nature, things that are sweet require your body to release insulin so that your body can store that, or deal with that blood sugar rise that you get from the sugar that you're having or the fruit or the whatever it is. So that's one of the biggest mistakes is not actually embracing the clean fast because we've been trained so long, it's not our fault. We've been taught that all weight loss is calories in, calories out. So we look at everything through that lens of calories. And, I played around with fasting from about 2009 to 2014 and never got it right. And I look back and I was having these quote skinny lattes that only had, I don't know, maybe 40 calories and putting stevia in those. And I was like, yeah, it's not enough calories. It's not a problem. And then I couldn't stick to fasting. Well, now I understand why, I wasn't fasting. And so once you really embrace that fasting is black coffee, no sweeteners, plain teas, plain water, sparkling water with no flavors or sweeteners, then it actually makes it become so much easier.
What would you say to the people who say, oh, I can't have my coffee without creamer, or oh, I can't have plain water, I have to have flavor?
Well, you can. I would say that you can. I was one of those people who felt that way too. I actually did not understand about the science of insulin release till I read Dr. Jason Fung's book, The Obesity Code. And I had been doing intermittent fasting for a while and had lost weight by that point. But it was still hard. I still counted down the minutes until my window would open every day. And I was kind of like white knuckling it through the fast. And I was also having some trouble with some weight regain. But once I understood that stevia that I was putting in my coffee was not helping me because my body thought, food was accompanying it and insulin was being released, I was like, well, I've got to stop this. So I thought, well, I can't drink black coffee. I'm just going to give it up completely. I'm not going to have coffee at all. I'm just going to stick to water. And I tried that. And then I realized I really missed the coffee. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. I can do the black coffee. And so I started with the black coffee. It only took me a couple weeks. I held my nose. I drank the black coffee. Man, fasting was easier. I was able to lose those 8 pounds I had regained. And eventually I got to the point where I really prefer black coffee. And I was the kind of person, I had stevia stashed away in every little cubby. I had it in my purse. I had it in my car. I had it in my work desk. I had it I had it everywhere. And so for me to make the switch, if I can do it, I promise anybody can. Now, of course, coffee is not required. If you're like, well, I really can't. I know, Jen, you can, I can't. Well, then don't drink coffee at all. Just, if you have to take a caffeine tablet, take a caffeine tablet, to get yourself through the adjustment period. But you're only hurting yourself if you say, well, I can't do it. I'm just going to have cream because people say it's okay. I promise you, it'll be better without it. You'll get the benefits of the fasting, and you just have to do it.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And in a moment, we're going to talk about your book, Delay, Don't Deny. And so it's like delay. And so I think about that sometimes. It's like, I really want my coffee with cream. So what I do is I drink my plain green tea in the morning, and I just love it. I found a brand, Rishi brand, that is really tasty, and there's no flavor to it. And I save my coffee to when I open my window. Now,
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, if I opened my window late in the day, I wouldn't do coffee because I'd be up all night. So you show us that we can have the flexibility to open our windows whenever we want. So my window opens 11 a.m. so I can have coffee. And
Love it. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
You found a way to make it work, and it suits your lifestyle, and there's no right or wrong time of day to have your window. I love that. And I do want to say one other thing for people like me who, and you, who think that you need the cream and you prefer it that way. I have found now that I'm completely adjusted to black coffee, I can't drink coffee with cream and sugar, even if my window is open.
Isn't that interesting?
I no longer. Yeah, I don't even like it. I was on a cross-country flight in June, and my window was open, and I was like, I normally don't drink coffee in the afternoon because of sleep, but it's going to be 3-hour time difference. I'm going to need to stay awake later and adjust to the West Coast time. I'm going to drink coffee, and I'm going to put cream and sugar in it because it's my window. And I had to call the flight attendant back and say, no, could I swap this for black? I can't drink it.
Look at that. That's so interesting. That's so interesting. Your body acclimates to what. That's the other thing that you teach us, is to listen to our body, to what we need. Yeah. And that's exciting. All right.
My taste buds completely changed.
That's encouraging. All right. So I think this was a 2-part question. The second part of the question is, what tips or words of wisdom can you offer people who want to have a successful intermittent fasting journey?
I think that's a great question, because no two people are going to have a pattern that is exactly the same or an approach that's exactly the same. No two people are going to be successful eating the exact same foods. This really is individualized, and that's the point that has to come across. You have to find an eating window that feels like a lifestyle to you. You need to make sure that it's something you can do long term. And you also need to be patient with the process, and you don't want to think that you need to have like immediate fast results. You know how all the diets out there that are on the magazines and the cover that you see at the checkout stand, they're like, lose 3 dress sizes by Tuesday, and that sort of thing. Intermittent fasting is not like that. You may go for the first month and not lose any weight at all. And as your body adjusts, you may find increased appetite at first, as your body has not quite learned to tap into your fat stores yet during the fast. It takes a while for your body to learn how to do that. If you've been in the fed state constantly, your body is not used to tapping into your stored fat. So give it some time. You may overeat at first. You may even gain a little weight at first, which is, not what people want to do. And then they all freak out and think, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. So be patient, give your body time to adjust. Over time, you find that your appetite goes down as your body is tapping into your fat stores. Your body says, oh, there's plenty of stored fuel here on my body. And then when you open your window, you suddenly find you're not eating as much. You can't possibly even finish that dinner you were looking forward to. Dr. Bert Herring, he's one of my heroes, and he wrote a book called Appetite Correction. He coined the phrase appetite correction, which means when your satiety hormones are in balance, you stop eating when you've had an appropriate amount of food. And that happens eventually for us with intermittent fasting. And then you just can't eat as much even if you wanted to. So I guess to summarize it, it's your journey, no one else's. Figure out what works for you, tweak it over time. Don't make too many changes at once, but tweak something, see what happens, tweak something else, and also be patient as your body adjusts. And don't let the scale, make you crazy. I have a chapter in my book about weighing, and I recommend, if you're going to weigh every day, and then once a week take a weekly average, and you only want to track the weekly averages as far as like your overall trend, and that makes a whole lot of difference.
That's really freeing. That's really, really helped me. I actually didn't realize that I forgot that you said to weigh daily. So I only weigh weekly, and it just it frees me up. And I know that Sunday morning I'm going to weigh myself, and it's like you don't see that up and down. Or if you're doing the weekly averages and you're tracking it, you're doing the daily averages and you track it weekly, then you're seeing the trend versus the up and down, which can be really discouraging.
Right. And for me, I have examples of this in Delay Don't Deny, but for me, the weekly weighing was a little misleading, because sometimes, like when I gave this example in the book, when I was going through my weight loss journey, Friday was the day that I calculated my weekly average. There would be weeks when my Friday weight was up over the Friday prior to that. So if I was only weighing on Friday, I would think I had gained weight that week. But because I was finding the weekly average, I could see that my average was indeed down. So even weekly weighing can cause you to miss the big picture because of the the way the weight fluctuates and goes up and down over time.
Right. And if we understand that, then we don't have to whack out about it. I know some people just stop weighing themselves altogether, and they go by how their clothing fits and how they feel.
And if your clothing is changing, if your clothes are getting looser and the scale is not going down, trust that your clothes are telling the true story.
I think that a lot of people are doing a happy dance right now.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about your Facebook groups. In your books, you invite readers to join one of your Facebook groups where you lead 140,000 members. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So why do you think intermittent fasting is attracting so many people, and what types of results are people in your group experiencing?
Well, we have so many different types of results. I like to call intermittent fasting the health plan with the side effect of weight loss, because it really is about so much more than just the weight loss. For me, my seasonal allergies went away, which was amazing. People report so many amazing benefits, like they no longer have skin tags, or, even the crazy things like my hair is not gray anymore, which I'm like, I can't even believe that, but people have reported it over and over. So I know. And scars get better. When we give our body a break from eating, it can focus on other things that need to go on within the body, because, digesting food takes a lot of attention within the body. So in the groups, we find, the support, which is so important to keeping yourself on track. If you're feeling down, you come into the group and you see something that'll bring you right back up. Or if you're having a struggle with something, you come into the group and you ask about it, and there's somebody there to support you. And because we really are actually on 7 continents now because someone from Antarctica actually joined the group. Someone stationed
Wow,
there.
that's exciting.
Yeah, we are literally 24/7, in the different groups. There are people there all the time, no matter what time zone you're in, no matter what time it is where you are, there's somebody there listening that can give you the support that you need. It might not be Jen because I do sleep, but we have moderators from all around the world too. We have moderators who are in different time zones, and that really helps as well.
As people can see, people may be wondering why I said 140,000 members. If they can see at the bottom, this one says 60,000 members. This is just one of 3 groups.
It is. Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify that so people weren't like, wait a minute. Also,
right.
I have like this ability to like read people's minds through the internet. And I have a feeling that some people are thinking right now, like 140,000 group members, how do you grow a Facebook group so large?
I'm going to just tell you that it actually was not my plan. I'm one of those people who had no plan. I started the groups before I wrote the book. I actually started with one group, and it was the 1 meal a day, like 1 meal a day group that I have. And I started that one in 2015. It was in August of 2015. And it was really just for me. I was a member of other support groups on Facebook. I was not the leader of them. I was a member of them. And I saw lots of really bad advice being given. And so I was like, you know what? I want to be in a group where it's me and my friends and the people I know that are doing intermittent fasting. And I want it to be a positive, uplifting place. I want to make sure the advice is good. That was important to me. And so I started my group. And when I started the first one, you cannot start a Facebook group by yourself. So I had to put my husband in it. And he, at the time, did not even do intermittent fasting, but I had to put him in there with me. And I remember sitting on the couch and starting that group. And then I invited my friends that I knew were doing intermittent fasting to the group as well. And then it was like freaking me out because people I didn't know were joining the group. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people I don't know are in here. What's going to happen? And then I just had to really trust that. I mean, it felt scary, the more people that got there, the scarier it felt. And I'm like, when people from foreign countries would want to join, I'm like, what, how are they finding us? And I laugh now because the fact that we are large and international and we have people from all over is actually a strength. But at the time, it felt so scary. And we have maintained our positive environment, our positive approach. We don't allow any kind of bullying or negativity or that sort of thing. We really clean up the members as soon as we need to. If someone's not a good fit for the group, they're gone. And actually, my largest group, I just made it harder to join, believe it or not. And that's like the opposite of what the Grow Your Audience books would tell you to do. But we decline a lot of people who try to join the groups. We have membership questions, and our goal is we want a high quality community of people who have shared goals, shared vision, and a positive mindset. And we would rather have a smaller group than the largest group in the world. But I think that, interestingly, that's what made us so attractive, and that's why we've grown so well. So instead of feeling like you need to let everybody in and keep everybody happy, focus on the quality of your group and have firm yet kind rules. Like, these are our non-negotiables. We do not, for example, allow food shaming in our group. Somebody will post a picture of maybe they went and ate at McDonald's for their window today. We all know, every human being knows that eating at McDonald's is not your most nutritious meal. We know that. But we don't allow people to shame each other and say, oh, vomit emoji, that sort of thing. We take those people out. And we're trying to empower our members to make the choices that make their bodies feel great. Over time, people find that, when I eat a lot of McDonald's food, I don't feel very good. And then the people who were posting a whole lot of fast food photos find themselves wanting vegetables. Maybe they never even ate vegetables before, but now their bodies are asking for them. So we empower our members rather than boss them around, and we also don't let them be ugly to one another. And I think that's the key.
I think that's the key because it's very high quality. I never see any negative things going on there because of you and your moderators monitor
Right.
that, and because you also have a screening process when you let people in. Well, thank you.
And also the other members don't put up with it. You know, they report a post. If someone is being really negative, they'll report it to admin and we can find it very quickly. And, you know, our members don't tolerate that sort of behavior either. So, you know, as the group got bigger, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, I got, you know, more and more scared. Like, how are we going to be able to keep it with the same level of positivity? But we have, because that's what we expect and that's what we demand. And it really feels like a big family.
I think people will find that helpful. All
Yeah.
right, the time has arrived. Let's talk about your book and celebrate that you are able to retire as a young teacher to be able
Right.
to follow your author dreams and sharing your message with the world and do that full time and retire from teaching. I just got chills. All right,
Yeah,
so
it gives me chills too to think about it, because I was able to retire at the age of 48 with a full 30-year retirement, which I know sounds crazy, but
oh, that is really exciting. And I know that this book has captured global attention. I've seen you interviewed on news station, and people around the globe are opening up amazing doors of opportunity and publishing uh, opportunities that you've been sharing with us. So tell us about your book and how you came to write it.
well, it actually is another funny story. I wasn't setting out to, you know, be a writer. I mean, I've always written, but the whole publishing process is daunting, with finding an agent, finding a publisher. And I now know, and probably a lot of your listeners do too, it's hard to find an agent or a publisher unless you already have a track record with writing and publishing. So it's like you're caught in this vicious cycle. And so the advent of self-publishing has just been amazing for those of us that had a story to tell, but yet no one, you know, would want to take a chance on us. So when I was ready to write the book, I read up on self-publishing, and I'd already been putting it together and, you know, practicing my writing really for a long time on Facebook and the groups. And so I already knew what I wanted to say to people, and I had it all outlined. And then, you know, I wrote the book and released it. And I didn't know how many people would read it, or if they would like it, or if they would, like, what is this nonsense? And who is Jen Stevens, and why is she writing this book? You know, did I have a voice? Did people want to hear it? And then I was fortunate to find, you know, they did. People did respond well to my book. And writing it was the scariest thing I've ever done, because so much of it is personal. And, you know, I have my own story in there. And I'm like, you know, people I knew in high school are going to be able to read this and, you know, hear about all the things I did. And it was just terrifying. But I got rid of all those fears and I put it out there. And, you know, the first one I put out there, the first day it went out, it wasn't perfect. It had some typos. It had some problems. The formatting, I had to work on that over time. But, you know, people really responded to the message. And that was what is so important to me. You know, ironically, now that the book is so successful, I've had publishers reach out to me wanting to publish it. And I actually have signed with the top literary agent. We're going to, you know, shop it around to publishers after the first of the year. But it's only because it's successful that now they want it. When I was interviewing agents, actually, to decide who to go with, the first agent I talked to, she was a really, you know, a top agent in the diet and weight loss space. And she's like, well, you know, I read your book and we're going to need to change the title, and the layout's all weird, and you're going to have to change the chapters around. And I'm like, okay, you're not my agent, because you don't get it. And then the other two agents that I spoke to, they're like, all right, we're ready to make this happen, because my book is not like typical, you know, formulaic diet books. And I did that on purpose. When I was pregnant, there was a series of books that really, this is back in the 90s. I had my boys in 98 and 99. There was a series of books. Well, there was one series of books that everyone read, What to Expect When You're Expecting. Are you familiar with those?
Oh, yeah, I read those.
Yeah, we all did. What to Expect When You're Expecting. But then there was another series called The Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy and The Girlfriend's Guide to the First Year. And do you remember those?
I don't think I came across those.
Well, she had all 4 different books that were about the different stages, pregnancy and then the first few stages of your child's life. But she wrote them like she was talking to us. She was talking to us about pregnancy in a way that wasn't in, what to expect when you're expecting. And I'm like, I want my books to talk to the reader the way The Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy spoke to me. And, I would read that and reread it. And it made me feel like I was connected to her. And it made me feel like I could do this. And so that was really, I used a book that inspired me to help me write my book in a tone that I knew I really responded well to. So it's not like any diet book out there, that you've read, written by a doctor that's super stuffy, whatever. I wrote it in a very casual tone. I wanted it to feel like when I sat down and read The Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy, like she and I were having a chat and she was my friend. That's how I wanted my book to feel too. So I just wrote it from the heart in a way that I wanted to connect with people, like if you were sitting beside me.
That's actually the experience I had when I first got your book.
Good.
I dove in and I gobbled it up, no pun intended, as as I would a great novel. Versus I have other books. You've mentioned several of the books that I have here because I go by your recommendations, and I have read several of those books. I haven't even gotten through some of them because they're just so detail oriented and so cerebral. Yours is like,
Right.
hey, girlfriend, let's sit down. We're having a chat.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah, and that was by design because I wanted it. And I also not everyone has a lot of time to read, and they don't want to sit down and have to dig through everything. Now, I do have links to studies in my book, and I have links to the science, and I direct you to other resources because there are a lot of people who want to get into that deeper dive, but there are a lot of people who don't. And so my book was written for them. And for people who don't like to even read at all, I have it on Audible, and I read it myself. So people can listen
Well,
to
you're
it.
brave. That must have been challenging, huh?
Oh my gosh, it scared me to death. But I'm lucky to have a connection with the radio talk show host, and he put me in connection with a great audio engineer, and he and I just sat down and just recorded it, and he did all the editing, and it was fabulous.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
mean, the experience was fabulous. I hope people think the audio book is fabulous, but it was great having somebody that could help me do that.
Well, after reading the book, I'm actually want to read I want to listen to the audio now because I'm sure I'll hear it. Like there were things you're talking about today that I forgot were in the book because you only
Right.
retained so much information. So I'll look forward to listening to that. All right, so here's another exciting thing about your book and your book's success. At the time of this recording, 764, this is from
Oh.
your book's page, 764 customer reviews. So I would like to know, and I just got chills again, what kind of impact has having that kind of response to your book had on your business and your life?
Well, it's just amazing. Of course, like most people, I gravitate down and I'm like, what's wrong with those 2% of those people who gave it the 1 star? But it really is amazing to me to know that that I've had this kind of impact on people's lives. And it's surreal because, I'm just Jen. I'm a person. I'm not a medical professional. I was an elementary teacher. I am somebody that struggled just like you. When I say you, I'm saying the global you, everyone who's listening out there who struggled. I am like you. And, because I'm a teacher, I was be able to tell this story in a way that would teach you how to also be successful. And so it just blows my mind away. And I am just so grateful that people have been receptive to it and that they have liked the book.
And we have a lot of authors who are in our community who are wondering, how did you get so many reviews? And one of the
I did not really ask for them. I did ask for them recently.
Yeah.
Like I just have started asking for them, but I've never asked people to go leave a review on my book, except now that I have this agent who has asked me, if we're going to pitch it to a publisher, and I'm not even certain we're going to go with a publisher. It just all depends, because the book is doing very well as a self-published book. The reason I'm considering moving to a traditional publisher is reach and getting it in actual bookstores. And also a publisher would help me with having it translated into other languages, which I would like to see happen. Because, if you self-publish, you make a great deal more money per title sold than with traditional publishing. So I would have to sell, 7 times as many books to make it worth my while to go with a traditional publisher. So I might even make less money if I went with a traditional publisher.
Like you're saying, the exposure. I can imagine you on national news shows or talk shows.
We'll see. But people are funny about that, because they're like for example, a friend of mine had another friend who was trying to write an article about, I think it was about fasting. And she's like, you need to talk to Jen Stevens. And I'm like, all right, I'd be glad to. And she's like, no, we only want to talk to doctors, medical. And I'm like, all right, okay, that's fine. I'm not a medical professional telling you, I'm your doctor. Here's some fasting tips. I'm a person who can guide you and help you along the way in the process. So it's understanding who I am and who I'm not.
Well, that makes these reviews even more valuable. The fact that people are just like so moved, they just had to share, which is why your message is going so viral, because people are just saying, hey, I've been struggling with this my whole life, and they tell their friends and their relatives and all of that.
And yeah, so in the past like month, the newest ones, there have been, I did ask, because my agent said, you need to get it out there. So I did ask in the Facebook groups, could you go leave a review? And so some of my great people did go do that. I know some of the low reviews, I don't read my reviews because I know some of the low ones are people that like used to be in the Facebook group. Are you familiar with Glennon Doyle? Do you know who she is?
No.
She's a blogger, and I don't know if she's written books. She's a speaker, but she wrote something. It was a blog post about not following your art around and babysitting it. And she literally, I think, was talking to an artist, but considering your writing is also your art, you put it out there and then let the world see it how they see it. And you know what? And she says, not everybody is going to like you or your message. And so when I read that, it was okay. I'm like, you know what? It's okay that those people gave it a 1 star because they didn't like the way the Facebook group was run, or maybe they thought my book was stupid and I'm not a doctor and, that you should read something different, or maybe they, whatever. They don't like Jen Stevens. That's okay. And they don't think that my book has anything of value for them, but that's not my deal. That's not something I need to embrace. And that's what, I stopped reading my reviews when I read that. From Glennon Doyle, and it was just really powerful for me. I'm like, you know what? She's right. I don't need to follow my book around and babysit those reviews and respond to them.
And also, you can celebrate the 92%, because that's a huge number. That's a huge.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, there's something else that you do to share your message. You have 2 podcasts. You co-host the Intermittent Fasting podcast, and I saw on iTunes that you have over 2 million downloads.
We do. We're really, I think, close to 3 million now.
Oh my goodness! And you have Intermittent Fasting Stories, which is your new podcast.
Right.
So tell us about your podcast.
Well, the first one, the Intermittent Fasting podcast, we've been doing that. Today, actually, after I get off the call with you, we're going to record episode 89. So we've been doing it for 89 weeks. That lets you know how long we've been doing it. And Melanie Avalon is another author. She's written a book. She does paleo with intermittent fasting too. So she was looking for a co-host, and she happened to pop into my Facebook groups and said, anybody want to co-host a podcast? I'm like, all right. And I'm so grateful that she came in there. I think it was meant to be. I really enjoy being on that podcast with her. We use a Q&A format. We also have a lot of guests that come on that will interview about different topics that are related to health and nutrition. But I felt like I wanted something a little more than just the Intermittent Fasting podcast. I wanted, people are hungry, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, to hear from other people who do intermittent fasting. And so that's why I started Intermittent Fasting Stories. And just like with the audiobook, I realized, I can't do everything myself. I don't know how to edit audio. I'm sure I could learn, but I was holding myself back from doing it because of my inability to have the technical skills and my fear of doing all that part of it so well. So I found a company to work with that does the editing for me. And so once I was like, I just was like, oh, I don't have to do it all myself. So I hired this company, and they do the editing for me. And so each week, released every Thursday, there's a new intermittent fasting story where I talk to somebody who's inspirational that will tell their story. So I love that podcast. It really, that's more, I mean, I love the intermittent fasting podcast too, because we've reached a lot of people through our work, but intermittent fasting stories is the one that's near and dear to my heart. And I'm really self-funding that one right now. You know, I'm paying for it. I don't have any ads. I don't have any sponsors. I haven't even looked for any yet. I'm just getting the message out there.
There's something called Patreon where people can become monthly members, and you can, if you ever wanted to explore that. And
I thought about that, and I asked in the advanced Facebook group, which was more, my personal group because they've all read the book. I asked in there, what would y'all rather, if you're listening to a podcast? And they really felt like they liked sponsors better.
Sponsors than Patreon, because the sponsors, or maybe the tools would be more useful. Like Dr. Herring should be a sponsor at some point. Like once you come onto his radar, he could be a great sponsor for his work.
I've actually met him. I met him in 2016 before I wrote Delay Don't Deny. He is such a great guy. He is just a great guy.
He seems like he really seems like it. Oh, that's amazing. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. I know that our listeners have gotten a lot out of our time today, and I would love to know, as we wrap up our session today, what thoughts would you like to leave us with, and what's the best way for people to connect with you and the intermittent fasting community?
Well, I see you have my website there, jenstevens.com. I also have intermittentfastingstories.com. You can go there and listen to the new podcast. But yeah, just you can connect with me through my website or through the Facebook communities, and I would love to see you around. And don't let the word fasting scare you, because it sounds harder than it is, and it's just true freedom for those of us that feel like we've been trapped in diet prison. I will never stop doing intermittent fasting versus those diets that you couldn't wait for them to be over. This is just not like that.
Jen, thank you for being brave and taking your journey and being transparent, even though I'm sure it has not been easy as you go along. But the lives you are changing and the people you are helping, may all your dreams come true as you fulfill your dreams, because you're helping so many people.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome, and thank you for your time and for being with us here today.
Well, I was so glad to do it.
Well, for our listeners, I want to thank you for joining us today, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Health and Happiness interview series. To discover more interviews and ways to share your brilliance with the world, go to shareyourbrilliance.com. And while it's on your mind, head over to Amazon and pick up Jen's life-changing book, Delay Don't Deny. And I encourage you to purchase her book. Leave a review. Let's help her get to 1,000, though by the time you're listening to this, she may be well beyond 1,000. And I will look for you in Jen's Intermittent Fasting Facebook group. And until next time, here's to your health, happiness, and dreams come true.